what I found interesting was that, and I did not expect this, I expected the tenants to think well of the landlord, but I didn't expect there to be that strength of feeling that the landlord would act better in the future than they are now. So obviously it was clear that if they got this certification now, it meant that at the present moment they were they had a better reputation in the building, they would keep their tenants for longer, they would so on, and all those things. That's fair enough. I expected that. I had a question in the questionnaire about what would you then expect the landlord to do in the future. So would you expect them to increase rent year on year significantly? Would you expect them in the future to take on more reputable contractors to do work and so on and so forth? And it was interesting, the correlation between if the landlord had the certification and that future behaviour would be better was very, very strong. And the strongest link, interestingly enough, this is what I liked so much, and the person supervising me at university liked a lot, was the strongest link was between the lack of opportunism and the rent increasing year on year. So in one sense, I was trying to link what does the certification say about the character of the landlord, and what does it say about the future behaviour of that landlord. And there was a very strong correlation between lack of opportunism and the fact that the landlord would not increase rent significantly. And those are directly linked. Even though they're in completely separate questions, they are directly linked. And that was actually one thing that helped us see that the actual 33 answers gave us a good statistical significance to it. The idea of opportunism in a commercial world that we all live in is that how can one side of a trade know that the other side of the trade is actually being fair? Now we all know that you expect to sell something for what it cost you plus a bit of a profit. But the idea of working out whether that profit is wrong in terms of how much it is or whether it's acceptable is to do with what you gauge the other party's opportunistic characteristics are. So if a tenant felt that a landlord sort of would act opportunistically, they would be afraid that that landlord would ask too much of them, or in the future would raise the rent in a disproportionate manner, or give them bad services but still be charging them the same for those services and so on. So the link that I tried to make between how this certification made the tenants view their landlord in terms of their opportunistic characteristics, if you like, and how that made them think they would act in the future was actually quite positive in terms of there being a close link. So if a tenant felt that a landlord was not opportunistic, they felt that they would deal with them more fairly in the future. Now, remember, the certification in itself says nothing about the opportunism of the landlord. It just says that this particular year they did a good job with their service charges. And yet, what we call an inferential leap, they inferred something from this to this because they had little information about this. And that's all to do with the trade between a landlord and a tenant being what we call informationally asymmetric. The landlord knows a lot more about what it's costing them to run that building than a tenant does. A tenant, they can benchmark, they can guess, they can look at things on the web, but they will never know exactly what it is costing this landlord. And so if they can look at this landlord and say, okay, they've been fair here, that therefore means that they're probably being fair here. That inferential leap was very strong. And I don't think landlords realise that. I don't think they realise that if they can improve their reputation in one part of what they're doing, then it will actually have quite a tangible effect on what the tenants will think they will do in other parts.